Yeah.
Okay.
Go on.
So we left off discussing the Indian of a makabel. We were discussing that kuf and reish on the side of klippa, and they correspond to hay and dalid on the side of kedusha. And the dalid and the reish, we said, have the same meaning and a very similar shape. They both mean poor. Both the word dalid and the word reish mean poor. However, the difference is that the dalid has a yud sticking off the back of it. That's the difference in their shape. And that yud represents the bittul, which makes the Indian is that the reception of the dalid is what's called a true makabel. Because he has this bittul of the yud, so he's a true makabel. A receiver. So he said that the dalid represents malchus of atzilus, which is the makabel for all the other spheros. And in the powers of the soul, that corresponds to the koach hadibur, power of speech, which is a makabel because it's just as filled with, it's only as much as what you put into it, basically. From the higher spheres, for example, intellect and emotion, they dictate what speech is going to be. And speech doesn't have a chance to do anything without filling it with intellect and emotion. So it's just a pure receiver. And then we started talking about any trace...
Evolution.
Yeah. Any trace of self already tampers with the true reception that needs to happen. So it goes without saying that if a person is arrogant that he can't receive. We said an empty kli can receive, a full kli can't receive anything. So it goes without saying that if you're filled with yourself, you're not going to be able to receive. But he goes further and says that even if you're, like the most extreme example was, even if you're busy trying to figure out what the teacher is telling you, using your hasaga, while he's saying it, which is not such an evil thing seemingly, already you're no longer in the realm of makabel. You're already sort of throwing your 2 cents into it. Hasaga is grasp. Because at the moment when you're trying to be having hasaga and understanding, at that moment you're not receiving anymore. You're already putting your 2 cents in. And therefore you can't receive at that time. Okay, so basically that's where we left off. And what should you do? You should really just be a true receiver at the time, and only afterwards you can be misbonin in the matter and meditate on what was said to you. But at the point of action, you have to just receive. Okay, so we taken from after the parentheses. Maybe let's say straight before the parentheses, and then we're just going to go right before the parentheses, and then we'll jump over the parentheses. So this is a person is at his time of his learning, when he's actually learning, he's not batul b'tachlis, he is a metzius in his own eyes. He exists. He's not just receiving from the sages. He's sort of throwing his 2 cents in, as it were. And therefore he can't really receive from the sages. And we said that there's a whole kind of this type of confusion in this, and this attitude certainly slipped in, and it was one of the things that the Baal Shem Tov and Chassidus sort of came to try to fix. There's a famous story. Baal Shem Tov goes into one of the shuls in Misnagdim a couple hundred years ago, and he says, "Wow, this place is mamash filled with davening, filled with prayers." And they said, right here. And they said, "Wow, we really appreciate it. We weren't expecting the Baal Shem Tov to come and say that, And neither were his Talmidim. They walked out and they said, "Rabbi, what did you mean?" He said, "Because they don't go anywhere. They're stuck in there. The whole place is filled with prayers. They don't go up to Lamaila." Meaning to say that if a person is holding on to themselves and they're not batul, they're left with themselves. You don't want to be left with yourself. You want to be out of yourself. But there's a sort of attitude that learning in general can lead to that. It's not. No one is spared from this, right? This the difference in general. Like we were learning the other day about Yosef and Yehuda, right? Yosef represents, in a certain sense, Torah learning. Yehuda represents prayer. It's the meaning of Yosef comes the word losif, to add. So when a person in general is learning, whereas Yehuda comes the word hodah, bittul. So they're opposites. To be in a state of hodah and bittul is in a certain sense, which is prayer, the opposite a little bit of being in a state of learning. When you learn, is the Indian of lahosif, to add. The whole notion of learning is that you're adding one thing after the other thing. The way of learning is you're growing. You're putting more and more and more and more and more into yourself. So you could mistake this to think that you're becoming greater and greater and greater and greater. And therefore, arrogance is right around the corner, basically, is hovering underneath the concept of learning. Because you think the more you know, the greater you are. Because in reality, what you're learning is you're receiving the words of God when you're learning Torah. It's not just adding it to yourself. This is basically emptying yourself so that more of godliness can be seen through you. And therefore, this is the great task of bittling yourself to get out of the way and not have this false assumption that because you're gaining something, that it's you that is in the picture. And this is called adding a metzias, being a metzias be'enei atzmo, being something in your own eyes, which then blocks you of having the true metzias, which is the Torah coming through you. Anyway, so this student, he's not batul b'tachlis. We're going to skip the parentheses. V'choshev b'asagas ha'inyan kfi chiyuv sichlo, and he's thinking about the understanding of the topic in accordance with what his intellect sort of demands. Sichlo? Intellect, seichel. You review these words when you're done. You got to review. A lot of these words that you're asking also come up time and time again. Maybe 50 times in a mimer we'll have the word hasaga, or the mimer of this size, that is. So he says, "V'choshev b'hasaga za'in kefis chiyuv sichlo." So he thinks about the hasaga of the inyan in accordance with his mind's demands. It was his mind's interests. Which means to say that he's not in a state of bit of metzias completely. He's still there. Therefore, he can't receive. Whereas a true makabel, he's absolutely nullified. And this is what kedusha is. That one should be in a state of bittul. There are synonymous words, basically. Kedusha and bittul. Because you can't have kedusha unless you're bittul. Because ultimately, kedusha, what is kedusha? Kedusha means, what does kedusha mean? Separate. Separate, meaning to say that it's something beyond this world, really. And you're wanting this thing to dwell where you are. The only way to do that is to move yourself out of the way. And this is not, you don't have to be some kind of a holy sage in order to do this. Anytime you're going to do anything in Torah, which means you're going to be dwelling kedusha upon you, you have to some degree, release your interests and allow Hashem's interest to be found there. And this is what it means, that kedusha requires bittul. Any mitzvah you're going to do, you have to stop doing your will and allow Hashem's will in. Requires bittul. This is what all avodas Hashem is. The whole concept of what it means to serve God is to be bittul. And it's an interesting thing, because a person will say, I'm going to serve God, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to hosif. I'm going to add something onto myself. A person thinks that in the world it's the exact opposite. A person's going to do service. It means they're sort of like putting, they're getting something out of it. They're building something. They're doing it. Whereas avodas Hashem is the idea of getting out of the way, allowing something bigger than yourself to come in. That's the whole inyan of serving God. Iskafi and ishapcha. The first move of serving God is not being there. And this whole thing is symbolized and is epitomized by the sphere of Malchus, which we're saying is this Dalit. Because it has no existence of her own. Like these letters, right? That they just serve as a garment to allow something else to sit inside of them. The letters don't get in the way of the speech, right? Of the emotion trying to come out. The letters are just translucent entities allowing what's inside to be seen outside. Much like a Jew is meant to be. Right? A translucent figure allowing the Kedusha to be present in this world. You're just like a letter, a garment, allowing something beyond you to be present here, and that requires bittul. And therefore all revelations that come into the world, it's through the lowliness and the bittul of Malchus. Whereas anything that we're going to receive of godliness in this world, it comes through the channel of Malchus. Meaning to say that, remember we spoke before about the different levels of the Kesser and so forth. Good stuff. Right? We talked about the 3 levels of the Kesser. There's Atik and Arich and Panimius Atik. And we said that all these are like different supernal lights beyond the world. But we can also get them. Chasidech Yibarachucha we talked about. That a Chassid can bring them down and reveal them. But whatever he's going to bring down, we said, what's a Chassid? It's Hamis Chassid im Kandile, right? Hamis Chassid im Kono, someone who does chesed with his maker. And the Zohar says, im Kandile, with his nest. And what do we say his nest was? Malchus of Atzilus. That in other words, that he does chesed with the nest of Hashem, which is called Malchus of Atzilus, which means he's able to bring forth all the lights which are above and get them to reside in Malchus of Atzilus. That's what it means to do chesed with the nest. To do chesed with Malchus is to bring things into Malchus. Because no matter what light, we're talking about even Chasidech Yevrachucha, which says Panimius HaKeser, Panimius HaAtik even, which is lights which are completely beyond this world. Once you get them into Malchus, because Malchus is this total bittul, it's an absence of self, it enables all these lights to be revealed, because it's a kli of let's say letters, which does not block the lights and the emotions and the intellect and even the will and the tainug and the desire all to come and be seen through it. It's like an empty vessel. So therefore Malchus is the key to enable all the higher giluyim, all the higher lights to come into this world. And without Malchus, none of them can come into this world. Ubezeh yuvan mashakasuv tefil LaDavid Hashem aznecha aneni. So it says, the prayer of David, lean Hashem your ear and answer me. Ki ani ve'evyon ani, because I am poor and impoverished. What does it mean? The tefillah of David is kashrus va'bitul bechinas malchus. So tefillah of David, what does tefillah of David mean? David represents what sphera? Malchus. So the tefillah of David is the prayer of Malchus, basically. Right? It's what Malchus has to say. So it says, in another place, there's a verse that says, Ani tefillah, right? I am prayer. This is also Malchus talking. And again, because what is prayer? We talked about the Indian of Hodah, Bittul, Ani tefillah, who is kashrus va'bittul de bechinas Malchus. So this thing, tefillah David, is the connection and the bittul of the level of Malchus, the prayer of David. In a godel tokef habakasha, and this is an intense, great and powerful level of request, which is Hateh Hashem aznecha, lean Hashem your ear towards me, ba'aneni, and answer me. Right? So that's a strong request. It's saying, Hashem, put your ear over here and answer me. And what schus do you have that I should answer you? Mipnei ma hu lefi da'ani ve'evyonani. Because I am poor. In other words, being poor is a reason to be answered. And Malchus is coming to feel the David, the spheres of Malchus, is coming and saying, Hashem, you have to listen to me. Why? What's schus do you have? I should listen to you because I'm poor. There's nothing to me. There's no me here. So therefore you have to fill me up. And that's where the brachas come. The brachas come to a person who's not filled already. If you're filled, you can't be more filled. You're already full. This is the nullity that Malchus has. And zehu os dalid. And to conclude, this is the whole concept we've been describing this whole time, the letter dalid. Yeah?
So is it saying here that Malchus is poor? It's like the lowliest?
Malchus is poor, yeah.
So how poor are we in compared to the king? Is he going to get into that?
Well, it depends on what kind of poor you are. We're going to Reish and Dalid both mean poor, right? But what we're saying, then is the words. Reish, there's a pasuk, Reish va'osher, poor and rich. Dalid is the Indian of poor, right? Dalus. So the idea is they both mean poor. But poor, there's a poor on the side of Kedusha. And this is what we just went a long time explaining. There's a poverty of Kedusha. which means that you're making yourself less and less and less and less and less, and therefore always contracting yourself into a bittul. Therefore, there's room for bigger things to come through you, and that's called the dal because there's the yud sticking off the back of it.
What does Reish do? Like, why is Reish different?
Masha ein kain reish, yeah, ein
Oh.
bo yud.
Oh, nice.
The reish doesn't have a yud. She'ein bo b'chinas habittul. So that's what I was just saying. You can be poor, but not bittul. So don't say, if Malchus is so poor, then look how poor we are, because you better make sure you have the right poor happening here. Because you could be poor in such a way where you're not bittul also. Just like a reish, who also means poverty, but it doesn't have the yud sticking off the back. V'adarabah, hu b'chinas yeshus v'gasus. The reish represents the opposite, even though it's very poor, yes. But it represents the opposite of the dalid, which is the Indian of bittul and making itself small. Reish does not make itself small. It represents yeshus and gasus. It's totally arrogant and filled to the brim, knows everything and doesn't need anybody for anything. Therefore, it's of the letters which appears on the dark side, on the side of evil. Va'anius va'dalus, the sitra achra. So what is this poverty and poorness on the sitra achra, the other side? Hu she'ein lehem shaychus lelukus. They're really poor. In other words, being poor in a sense of David HaMelech means that you feel yourself to be lacking all the time. In a sense that you're not arrogant. You don't feel like you've got it made. So you're always looking to be clinging to the source of your life. Right? And therefore, you're connected to the source of your life, and you're a proper channel to enable the source of life to come through you. But if you're truly poor, in the terms of klippa, it means you're literally disconnected from godliness. You're really poor, because you don't even have a bank account, right? You don't have a way to get the chayes of godliness to come through you. So you're in essence truly empty of anything good. Because godliness, which is the source of life and chayes, is blocked from being associated with you. So this is also called poor, but it's a poor of a sitra achra kind. This itself, that they have no connection to godliness, right? And this is their poorness, right? That they don't have any connection to God. So with this itself, that they're disconnected from God, they become more and more arrogant. Right? Further and further. In other words, the more you feel that you're disconnected, then it's a slippery slope. You keep thinking that you're going to have more. In other words, a person starts to be disconnected, so it leads him to be further and further disconnected. He'll start to steal and he'll start to cheat and he'll start to rob because he doesn't anyway feel. So as he gets further and further a feeling of losing his connection with Hashem, the arrogance gets further, and therefore the arrogance leads him to do more and more arrogant things, and therefore his disconnectedness gets more and more severed. So that you're disconnected from God makes you become poorer and poorer and poorer in the realm of the Sitra Achra. You know that?
No, I do. But so, what else could he do? Like, how could he turn that around then?
Bittul. He's got to stop himself. His skafia and his habcha.
Is bittul itkafia?
Bittul is his skafia. Right? Bittul is saying it's not all about me. So you want to go and do something, but then you check yourself and you say, but I can't do it. I have to make myself small. The whole world is not for me to consume. Right? That thing I'm not allowed to consume. And that thing I'm not allowed to consume. And you slowly realize that you're not allowed to consume a whole lot. Right? And this is the Indian of hiskafi, and that's the Indian of making yourself smaller and smaller. What do I need? What do I have? I have nothing, basically. It's not for me. I'm small. So this enables you to be connected to Elokus, which means that you will now be an empty vessel, because you're not filled with yourself. You'll be an empty vessel to receive Kedusha into the world. So really, it's a poorness, but it's a poorness which leads to wealth, as we're going to see. Does anyone have any questions on this concept here? Is it clear, Leib, what's going on? No? you have your coffee this morning? Okay. So Kitzer. Dalid v'reish naisim perushim, shneim perushim dalus. So we said that the dalid and the reish, both of them mean poor. The dalid is kedusha, but the dalid is poor in the side of kedusha, which is a yud ma'acharav, which is indicated because there's a yud on the back of it. The yud represents tachlis of bittul, that it's a poverty which is connected with making yourself small and bittul. It has the yud. V'alideizehu kli lekabbalah. And therefore, because it has the yud, it's a poorness which is empty and therefore able to be filled. And it's looking always to be filled, and therefore it can receive what's above it. And therefore, ultimately, it's just a predecessor to wealth. Because even though speech is basically empty, but it's in its own right, it doesn't have anything to fill itself. It's an absence. But because it's empty, it can be filled with the highest giluyim. You can fill speech with emotion, intellect, will, tainug, right? It can be filled with the highest levels of giluyim because it has this bittul. It's ready to be nullified. Yamshil, and we said this is like analogous to a student that needs to be in an absence of existence be'es hakabbalah, at the time of reception. Mashen kain bo'os reish. And it's the opposite, not so with the letter reish. It's also called poor, but not because it has a bittul. On the contrary, it's not ready to receive anything. It's constantly full, and therefore nothing can come into it. And so really, it's full, it's so to speak rich in its own mind, but in reality, it's empty continuously and forever because it cannot actually receive new life force and revelations because it's full. Yeah. Zayin. It's in the style of the hemsheichim of his father, basically. There's the famous hemsheich of Renat and Samich Vav and Ayin Beis. You've heard of these things, and we've talked about them. So they're very, very, very long. Like this is a hemshech of 4 maimorim. Some of those are hemshech of 50 maimorim, or 100 maimorim. So there's kitzarim in order to help you. Like if you're in the middle somewhere, and you want to like sort of catch up to where you are, what's going on. You can read the kitzur and more or less have a general idea of like how to jump in maimor 17. You know what I mean? So this is a shorter hemshech, but also they wrote the kitzarim in there for the same reason. So 20 osios. If you want to kitzur to catch up to 17, you can read. Okay, Zayin. V'hina os yud sheba os dalid. So this letter yud, which is strapped onto the back of the dalid, masha bezem yischalek tumunas hadalid. What from this it's distinguished the picture of the dalid, tumunas haresh, from that picture of the reish. Hu me'acharav dafka. It's specifically behind the dalid. The yud, which the dalid has over and above the reish, where is that yud found? Specifically behind the dalid, on its back. Vayud im shuhu os zira, even though it's a small letter, mikola osios, it's the smallest of all the letters. Hinehu rosh lekola osios. It's also the head of all letters. The kol os harit chilaso os yud. Because basically, when it comes to writing letters, the way you write any letter is that you write a yud, and then you like sort of continue the letter from there. You draw out the ink from the fact that you made a yud, and you continue. So it's called the head of all letters because every letter starts with a yud. Nivra olam haba. More or less, I think there's some exceptions to that rule. But here what he says is that why is it also called the head of all letters, besides literally? It's because the yud, with the yud was created olam haba. With the yud was created the olam haba, and with the hey was created olam hazeh. That's the idea. Right? It says Beka Tzura Olamim. In other words, with Yud K, the Tzura Olamim is the rock of the worlds, right? So he says from here, the pasuk, which we say every day, the rock of both the upper worlds and the lowest worlds. With the Yud is the upper world, the Olam Haba, and the Hey, the lower worlds. Dal Zeh Omer ki kol b'shamayim va'aretz. And on this it says the words kol b'shamayim va'aretz. We read this also in davening every day. Where do we see this? L'cha Hashem ha'gdula ha'gvura b'tiferes v'netzek v'ahor ki kol b'shamayim va'aretz l'cha Hashem ha'mlucha v'yivarech David. Right? Yeah? So, you ever notice there's something strange going on there? It says l'cha Hashem ha'gdula, which gadol is chesed, right? Dula ha'gvura b'tiferes v'netzek v'ahor. It's all the spheres lined up basically with their names exactly. And when he gets to Yisod, he doesn't say Yisod. What does he say? Kol b'shamayim va'aretz. He throws in everything in heavens and earth suddenly, and then he says l'cha Hashem hamlucha, and then he goes back and finishes with Malchus. So where's Yisod in this story? Why does Yisod get left out? So it doesn't get left out. It's called Kol b'shamayim va'aretz. The sphere of Yisod, like Mamish right there at the beginning of all things, David HaMelech, is called by the name Kol b'shamayim va'aretz. Everything in heavens and earth. And the Targum, the translation of this verse in Aramaic, is the Achid b'shamayim va'ara. Is that it's joining basically heavens and earth. The Achid is it unites heavens and earth. Yisod joins the heavens to the earth. So Yisod is actually called joining heavens and earth. Shehi Sfiras Yisod. And this is called the level of Yisod. Shebechinas HaMalchus Mikabel Mimen. And this is what Malchus ultimately receives from. Because even though Malchus receives from everybody, but the direct sphera above Malchus is Yisod, which means first Yisod, that's why it's called the foundation. Because it's like the foundation of the heavens, if you will. Right? Because all Malchus is called earth, right? And then everything above it really is called the heavens. All the other 9 spheros. But Yisod is the foundation which joins basically that, which collects everything in the heavens and joins it to the earth. You follow that? This, if we say it joins heavens and earth, this is the union of Yisod, which basically Malchus receives from. Hine shamayim va'aretz. What's going on here? Shamayim va'aretz, shamayim eishu mayim. So shamayim in general, Rashi says right away, when in the first word shamayim in Parshas Bereshis, he says, why is it called shamayim? It's because it's eish umayim, right? It's a combination of eish, fire and water. What is fire and water? Bechinas chesed and gevura. Chesed and gevura, right? Chesed is water, gevura is fire. And the idea is that this is called shamayim. And aretz is bechinas malchus. Aretz is malchus. So in other words, what is the job of Yisod? It's kol b'shamayim va'aretz. It's basically the shamayim, which is the higher spheros of chesed and gevura. It's called shamayim, needs to be joined with the earth, and this is accomplished by Yisod, which is called kol b'shamayim va'aretz, the uniter of shamayim, chesed and gevura, with malchus, with malchus, the earth. Uhu sha'al yedei sfiras ha'yisod hu yichud chesed gevura u'malchus. And this is what we're saying, that through the sphere of Yisod, it joins chesed and gevura with malchus, the heavens with the earth. Heaven, because shamayim is chesed and gevura, eish and mayim, and earth is malchus. And Yisod's job is achid b'shamayim va'ara. It unites chesed and gevura with malchus.
How do you get that from the words of the Kol b'shamayim va'aretz?
Because what we're saying really is that the word kol really here comes to mean unite. Right? Kol b'shamayim
Yeah.
va'aretz. Kol is really like a uniting aspect of
Like
shamayim
put them
va'aretz. It joins together. Kol means to join, like he's klalus, right? It means that anyway a little bit. The idea of joining two things together to make two things into one. These, right? Like a kolel. Everyone comes inside of it. It joins everyone together. Is the union of joining, but what's it joining? Shamayim, which is Eish and Mayim, which are representatives basically of the higher spheros, because they're the midos, but also the midos are created from the mochin, the mind. So basically, Chesed and Gevurah are sort of representatives of the Shamayim, all the higher spheros, with the Aretz. And this is the union of Yisod, because Yisod is called Kol b'Shamayim v'Aretz. It unites the heavens and the earth. But Aval l'Rash ein Kol. The pasuk says l'Rash ein Kol, which is another way of saying l'Reish ein Kol. The Reish is missing this level of Kol. The Reish is a poverty which is sitting there at the bottom, but it doesn't have this aspect of Kol, which now enables it to unite with the Shemayim. It's the Aretz, basically, unable to unite with the Shemayim. Which just means it's like the thick, coarse, chumrius and materialism of the earth, which is not able to make itself into a kli to receive the Shemayim into it, because it's lacking this union of Kol, which is Yisod, which unites the heavens and the earth. So it means that the heavens are like sort of in a different realm of the earth, and they can't come together, because what brings them together is Kol, which is Yisod. Kol b'shamayim ba'aretz, where it says here openly, l'rash ein Kol. The Reish does not have Kol. So it's separated and it cannot receive from the heavens. The Os Reish ein Kol b'shamayim ba'aretz. So what do you see here? That Yud strapped onto the back of the Dalid, that's the Yisod, basically. The Dalid, we said, is Malchus. And the Yud, which it's sort of suckling from, is called Kol, right? Which it has Kol. The Dalid, Yesh Kol, right? The Dalid has Kol. Because that's how you make a Dalid, with a little Kol on the end, with a Yud on the back. And we said Yud is Olam Haba. He's kind of putting a few things together here. It's a little puzzle here. But he said before that Yud was Olam Haba. Remember? Hashem created this Olam Haba with the Yud, and Olam Hazeh with the Hey. So the fact is the Olam Haba in general is called the heavens. And you see that the Dalid, which is this earth, has this level of Yisod, which is the Yud, which is the heavens, with it. It bears it with it. You see that? So the Yud here represents Yisod. It also represents the whole union of the heavens. Olam Haba. The higher worlds. That's enough, huh? Where are you going? The Ba'os Reish ein Kol b'shamayim va'aretz. When it comes to the Reish, it does not have everything b'shamayim. It's not able to unite shamayim va'aretz. She'ein lehem sfirus hayesod ha'mechaber. Because what they're lacking, the Reish, is the sphere of Yesod, which joins the heavens to the earth. He says, Ein lehem sfiras hayesod. It doesn't have the sphere of Yesod. HaMechaber, which is the joiner of heavens to earth. If you don't have Yesod, then heavens are in one place and the earth is in another place. They can't come together. What joins them? The sphere called Yesod, which is called Kol b'shamayim va'aretz. It joins the heavens and the earth. Reish doesn't have it. V'gam hadibur hu ba b'tachlis ha'helam b'hester. And even speech comes in a state which is completely concealed. Now here we're going to throw sort of an opposite concept into the mix here. All the time we've been saying that speech is this quality of bittul, bittul, bittul. Right? Because speech has nothing on its own. Speech is only what you put into it. And therefore speech is the great revealer of all higher things. Because you have the emotion and the intellect and so forth and the tainug and the will. All of that exits the system through the faculty of speech. These letters which make themselves translucent in order to reveal something higher. That's true. However, speech which does not have this level of bittul, you find the exact opposite quality in speech. Which is that speech can also be at the tachlis hahelam v'hester, can also be the ultimate concealer. Which is what? That when a person is speaking to you, for example, in a language that you don't understand, let's say as an example. So he's not at that moment revealing what his emotions are to you and what his intelligence is to you. He's revealing gibberish to you, right? Because the idea is that speech, what do we say speech was? It represented the level of stones. The letters, we said, were stones. 2 stones build 2 houses. Which means if the stones are behaving properly, they create houses where something lives inside of them, which is emotions and ideas. But if they're not built in a way of houses,